Hello, Lockdown Diaries, day 44, Saturday evening. And today I was going to talk about going across America. I did a video maybe a week ago on shipping your own bike there or air freighting your own bike there. And I had a few questions from people who were thinking of doing something similar, who I guess just wanted some ideas on how to go about it, route options, choosing accommodation. So I just thought I'd do a video. I hope this is working. I've realized that you can record your screen, and so hopefully it should give a bit more clarity and detail. And I'll mix it up with some videos from one of the trips that I'm going to talk about. So all in all, I've been fortunate enough to go across America 4 times, 3 times on a bike and once on a guided trip. During university years, I did summer camp in Equinunk in Pennsylvania up here. And after that, did Trek America, where essentially you get 12 people or so get in a minivan. You've got a driver, a guide as such, who essentially takes you on numerous trips, one of which is the coast to coast, which is the one I went on. And that was 3 weeks down through, I guess, the highlights from New York, and we headed down to New Orleans, then across to San Antonio, into Roswell, Santa Fe, and then we went up to do Grand Canyon and Monument Valley, and then eventually finished, well, we did Vegas, and then I think we finished in LA. We actually finished in LA the day of September the 11th, 2001. We actually got into LA the day the Twin Towers, or we woke up the day that the Twin Towers were coming down, and we sat and watched it in disbelief in a campsite just outside LA. So a very surreal time. And then years, probably 10 years or so after that, was 2001, and then 2012. I sent the Australian postie bike, the Honda CT 110. I sent that into New York, air freighted it into New York. And on that trip, I hope this is not making people too dizzy. So I landed in Manhattan, and I didn't really have a route, so I headed west, got a bit lost, ended up in Pennsylvania, headed to Equinunk actually, where I'd done the summer camp, just because somebody had offered me a bed for the night there. And then that route sort of took me on a slightly northerly route, and ended up coming along Lake Erie, Cleveland, and doing the old Rust Belt, Toledo, up to Detroit and Ann Arbor to visit people. Detroit was very interesting. The rest of it was very rural and agricultural. Not a great deal of interest, but it was pretty easy riding. And Pennsylvania and Ohio have got some scenic parts, and then west into Chicago. And Chicago, for anybody curious, is where you pick up Route 66. So Route 66 starts just outside of Chicago. There's a signpost there, and it follows a road, the 55, Interstate 55. There's scatterings of the old Route 66 remaining. In large part, it's been replicated or paved over by the interstate, which is what made it very difficult for me to follow on the postie bike, because I couldn't really ride on the interstates on that bike. It was too slow. And so it was actually very difficult following Route 66. And it comes down to St. Louis, and then if we just zoom out a little bit, it comes St. Louis, Oklahoma, and then it goes west, Albuquerque, on I think that's a 40, on Interstate 40, I-40, Albuquerque, and then it goes all the way out to LA and sort of dips on and off a little bit here. So it's an iconic road, which for me was not so enjoyable on the small bike, which is why, for me personally, on that trip going east to west, I got off at St. Louis, went straight west, just dipped off these major roads and skirted through Missouri, Kansas, gone west from there on the Lonely Highway, which is Route 50, I believe. One of these, or where is it? Yeah, 50. So I jumped on the 50 for a large part of it, went through Dodge City, and then eventually came out at Pueblo, then Colorado Springs, and then on the postie bike trip I did all this region through here, through Colorado, over, which is where the Trans-America Trail comes in. It comes into around this region, and then you've got all the off-road trails that run through here down to Salida, Montrosa, and then you've got the Silverton and Durango, wherever they've gone. It's just down here, tell you ride. Yeah, so all this area is fantastic riding. And then I dropped on that trip down to Cortez and did the Four Corners area here, which is Monument Valley, not far to Grand Canyon and all that sort of thing. This for me is the most fabulous riding. Durango there, that's where I came in. Durango, then Cortez, and then Cayente, where Monument Valley is, and then drop down. So did the north rim of Grand Canyon down, and then did some off-road riding to Seligman. Seligman is where Cars was based on. Radiator Springs is based on Seligman, which is on the old Route 66. Ash Fork, which is very much an abandoned town. Seligman, which is hanging on in there through tourism. And then the longest uninterrupted stretch of Route 66, which is this one here. You can just see 66 there. And this is a really good bit. This is about 90 miles that goes through just nice scenic countryside. There's lots of little villages and points of interest, zoos and things along there. And then you come into the town / city of Kingman. And then for me, straight up Hoover Dam here, just there. And then into Las Vegas. And this is actually a decent road into Vegas. You come in through the back on this coastal road, or not coastal road, lake road here. And then you just come in the back way, through there, and it drops you straight down, and pretty much you're straight on the strip, wherever the strip is along there. And then for me, I just went west on that trip, out through Pahrump, Death Valley, and then you go in west out towards, I guess, into California, and then joining the coast and hitting it. I hit it just above San Francisco and ended up Route 1 to San Francisco. A few years later, I did a GS 1200 trip and flew into Las Vegas with the bike, which actually was very easy because the airport is on the outskirts of the city. So once you've collected your bike, you're straight out into the good and easy riding roads, which is for when you're landing somewhere new and starting a new adventure in I guess a strange environment or strange roads. It's always a good place to start where you've got easy access to quieter roads. So out of Las Vegas, you're straight into the quiet roads of Death Valley, etc. And on that route, it was myself and my wife. We got married in Vegas and then began our route east, so west to east to New York. And we did Four Corners again and went all around that region there, down into Santa Fe, and then eventually down to Roswell. And then east along this blue mark line here, which is through Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and then up into Virginia, West Virginia, and that was along the Blue Ridge Parkway, and that came in eventually into Manhattan. So that's the routes I've done so far. But this particular blue one that I've marked here is what we did as Garbage Run America in 2018, and that's when 12 of us flew our bikes in. So I organised the air freighting of the bikes into JFK. I think I used James Cargo on that trip, and we're supposed to be doing it again in 2020 using Motor Freight, which was postponed to 2021, but has now been pushed back again, obviously due to COVID. So I just want to talk about this particular route, which might give a few insights into this route that I took, but also how you might decide what suits you. And this is going to apply to you whether you're an American going coast to coast or an international traveller arriving in location. The Americans or the local people are probably going to tell me that there's better routes or other options, and I very much appreciate that. But obviously, when you're researching a route, certainly coast to coast, when it's covering 4,000 or 5,000 miles, there's only so much you can do. There's only so many of the good roads you can ride. There's only so much of the scenic stuff you can do, because in 4 weeks it's actually quite a stretch, averaging around 200 miles per day, and that's giving plenty of time to meander and wander and stay off the interstate. So I very much planned this as a non-interstate adventure. We did touch the interstate to get out of New York and into LA at the other end, but very much the rest of it was all on back roads or scenic roads and things like that. So this for me is a good route. I personally enjoy the diversity that this route, this sort of, I would call it a swing. So you start down, head south, and swing back up. And I'm going to do it in 2 parts simply because of time and the time it will take to just edit it together. And I don't want to make the video too long. So the second part, I'll do all this area here around Four Corners. But essentially, I'd call it a southern swing. So in, drop down, along the bottom, up. I mean, obviously, there's Montana and Wyoming, South Dakota I'd love to try at some point. And maybe that's for another time. I think it's, as you'll see, or I'll explain when I talk through the route, the reason we end up swinging south is because of Blue Ridge Parkway. And to do that and then head up to Montana, you'd have to literally do a really sharp swing up to get to there and then swing back down. So you can't see everything. And maybe if you got a chance to do coast to coast both ways back to back, then you would do this sort of southern swing on the way across and then the northern swing on the way back. I've heard it's great up here. I've never been. I've been through Oregon along the coast, which I really liked. And so, if the inland area is as nice as Oregon, then I'm sure it's really good. So 12 of us arrived in JFK, which is on the east side of Manhattan, which is a bit of a faff because it means you've got to come all the way back through Manhattan, which no matter how you cut it, whether you do non-interstate or interstate, it is a bit of a bind. There's lots of toll roads which we kind of neglected and didn't abide by simply because we had UK plates and we were, when you've got 11 riders behind you, then you just have to keep moving. And so that was it. So we landed in JFK, we got the paperwork sorted, we were shown to the bikes and they were brought out in boxes, and we uncrated them there and then, which is a really exciting moment, you know, when you get the bike that you sent on a plane dropped off a few weeks prior, that was air freighted in and landed, that then arrives in front of you. You open the crate and there is your bike fully laden with everything you packed on it. There's a bit of fuel in it, enough to get you to the petrol station. Your keys are in, you've got your documentation, your customs stamps have been put on the paperwork, and you're ready to go. And that moment we all gathered to set off was, I guess it's a real excitement, trepidation, nerves, what's ahead, what's going to come. And the way I'd done it was, in terms of planning, the first night I'd booked somewhere out called the Hobby House Retreat, which was just somewhere I found on Airbnb. It was something that could accommodate the full group of us. It was about 150 miles out from JFK. So my anticipation that we'd be out of JFK by about midday, having got there very early in the morning, or as soon as it opened, because you have to go from the shipping company or the air freighting company to customs and then back. And when there's 12 of you, it does take time. So we actually hit deadline on that. We were probably cleared and ready to ride at about 12 o'clock, which left us an 150-mile afternoon. And on this occasion, we did just jump on the interstate and head west to get sort of out of the city. But once you're out of this grey zone here, it really does empty out, and the roads aren't overly busy, and you can make good progress. And as soon as you turn off any of the interstates, it's a nice area. You know, it's a really good area. This is a lot of Amish country around here, so scenic rolling hills, a lot of agriculture, farmland, pasture land. So it's certainly not an ugly, unpleasant place to travel through. But the beauty of putting that first night's accommodation meant that once you're on the bike and you're ready to go, then you've got a very firm fixed destination ahead of you. And I would advise that same principle to whether you're going to Europe for the first time or anywhere that's alien to you, just to have that first night booked in, so you just tap it into your sat nav. You don't have to think about it of your destination. You just have to concentrate on the change in road conditions and adapt into the way things are out there, and just heading for this point on the map. So this is a time when sat nav really comes into its own, when you're fresh off the boat or the plane and you just need that helping hand to get you out to where you're going to feel sanctuary, really. And the Hobby House Retreat was set up for arts and crafts couples and groups, and very nice owners who did us a dinner that night. And yeah, I just found that on Airbnb, put in the dates, put in the number of people, and up it came. For this most recent trip across that was cancelled, I was just going to book us into a hotel or make reservations in a hotel out this way, and maybe not do the Hobby House or something similar, but just something though to get us out. And then from there we kind of followed a very quick, swift route, because for me, dropping down into cities, be it Philadelphia or Washington might have been interesting, but when you've just landed in a place with a group of riders, again, I think the last thing you want to be doing is trying to swagger into a city where you've got lots of road signs, lots of chance to get lost, people split up, lose the group. And I think equally at the start of an adventure, you're itching to conduct miles, to get some miles under your wheels rather than to sightsee. So that's why we skirted round to Philadelphia, Washington, which would have been nice. And had we been coming the other way, I think we would have stopped off at Washington. But because we were straight into the journey, we bypassed it. And we put into the sat nav Front Royale. which is really the start of I guess the Shenandoah National Park and the Skyline Drive. So Skyline Drive leads into Blue Ridge Parkway, and I think combined they're around 550 or 600 miles total length. And it's simply, if you can see this road here, it's literally that for 600 miles of an endless, twisty serpentine road that runs across the top ridge of a low-lying mountain range, I guess. But from the top, as you're riding along, you've got some great vistas, great views, a really heavily, densely carpeted forestry region all around. And it's impossible to get lost because you literally stay on this road. There's no towns or anything on it, so you actually have to get off the road to get fuel and things like that. But there's campsites along it, and there's a couple of hotels and things and tourist information along it. So there's enough infrastructure to get everything you need, and you don't need to plan too heavily along that. Speed limit's quite low, 50 miles an hour I believe on this, or 40 on this, and then 50 on the Skyline Drive, which sounds low, but to be honest, there's so many corners you never you spend your time cornering, and as long as you're a capable confident cornerer, you can sort of sustain 50 miles an hour without breaking sweat, and it's actually quite a nice pace to travel at. So we rode along here. It's just fantastic riding, really nice. As I say, the beauty of it is you can't get lost. So when you've got 12 riders, you say, right, we're just riding south, follow the road, I'll see you further down it, use WhatsApp to keep in touch, and away you go. This is a national park, and with so many national parks in America, and as they charge around $20 each, it's worth getting a yearly pass, an annual pass at the gate of the first one you get to. It's around $80, but if you're going into any more than 3 or 4 national parks, it's going to save you a fortune. Because obviously out west, when you get into Zion and Grand Canyon and Bryce and all those, you're looking at $20-$30 a day a park, which certainly adds up. So yeah, at the gate, at the entrance, you ask for an annual pass, $80. They give you a credit card size card, and you just show that when you enter, and it covers your pillion as well. So you just follow this down, get down to Waynesboro, which is somewhere down here. I mean, you can see it's just twisty. I've tried to put the route in this particular map, but it's impossible to get the line of the map to follow this ziggy thing. It always wants to jump off. We actually stayed with Linda and Charlie, which are a British couple who live out this way, and they've got some cabins up around this New Hope area here. So we jumped off, rode up there, stayed there the night. Most hospitable people you'll ever meet, and really good to travellers. And they were on the Horizons Unlimited site. And when you're talking about research, this is what I did really. I just Googled a lot, best riding in various states that I'd be passing through. And then I go on the forums on ADV Rider and just say, look, I'm coming across America. What are some really must-see stops or roads or biker-related or biker-friendly accommodation stops? And then you start to piece it together, then combined with the experience that I'd had in the past, you start to put the jigsaw puzzle together and define a route. But what I've done with this route is simply put in a fixed date and a fixed accommodation place every week. So we'd ride for 7 days with no real plan. Then on the 7th night, there would be somewhere I knew we would be aiming for. And then on the 14th night, there would be somewhere else. So that gave the trip structure and a time frame which would allow us or enable us to have an excess of time in the west where the best riding was. So it would keep us on track, but allow us the freedom in between those fixed dates to make pace as we went. Because as you find when you're traveling, you've got some riders who want to keep going at 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, others who want to stop and stay somewhere. So you soon find a group of 12 splitting down, and that was the beauty of it. And that's what I sort of encourage when I do these sort of trips, for people to find the feet and then start to ride at their own pace and do the trip in their own way. So the group started to fragment down. People were doing slightly different routes, and then sometimes we'd all ride together, and then we'd break up again. And just using WhatsApp, somebody who arrived at a town would say, I found a really nice motel, or there's a cheap motel on the outskirts, $50, drop a pin on WhatsApp. You put it in your, if you're navigating by phone, which we all were, you just get an American SIM, and then you just hit the dropped pin that person has shared, and your Google Maps will take you to it. And so it's a fantastic way of a group to travel with the freedom and flexibility of riding as an individual, but then with the harmony of a group and the backup of a group if things go wrong. So it worked well on that trip, and it takes it takes each rider to take a responsibility as well, because if they're not happy with the pace or the route, then it's up to them to change it to make it so they are happy, and that's the whole point of it. So Blue Ridge Parkway starts here, and yeah, it's just endlessly fantastic riding. I've done it summer and I've done it in autumn when the leaves change, which is a popular time to do it. It is very beautiful in the autumn, but it's busier. And so I actually think I preferred it in full bloom when everywhere was green and it was actually a little bit quieter. It's not a busy road by any stretch. You do have to watch the police along there, but as you can see, it just maneuvers all the way down, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. It's actually hard to follow on Google Maps because there's so many of these little roads. And in fairness, you could spend weeks in this region because there's all these little roads that you see off going different places. I mean, there'll be some spectacular roads around here that you would never see and you would always forever miss just by riding the Blue Ridge Parkway. So it's great that you get to see some of it, but obviously you can't see all of it. On this last trip, we ended up stumbling upon Roanoke. I think I'm pronouncing that right, which was actually a pleasant town. We stayed in a motel, and they got a good beer culture in the centre, some microbreweries and pizza places, and some live music. So actually, you had a good night there. We were supposed to be camping in Meadows of Dan, which has got a bike-friendly or a bike-focused campsite called Meadows of Dan. No, not Meadows of Dan. Oh, I forgot the name of it now. Blimey. Will's Place, that's it. And so we were aiming there, which is a little bit further along. But as you can see, it's all wiggly roads, and the Blue Ridge Parkway is in there somewhere. I don't even think it's that one there. Is it that one? No, it's not that one. Anyway, it's wiggling. It's that one there. That one. That's it. It's smart. And it just comes down. There's Meadows of Dan. Yeah. So it just comes down, wiggle, 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 and there's some great scenery along here. I would certainly recommend the Blue Ridge Parkway if you ever get a chance to ride it, just because it's a fantastic road. It's a fantastic motorcycling road, and it eventually brings you out a place called Cherokee, which I'm just going to zoom out to find there. So really, as you can see, again, I hope I'm not making anybody too dizzy. Front Royale starts there. That's the top of Skyline Drive, and then essentially the serpentine winding road with no traffic on it, running along the ridge, goes all the way down to Cherokee. So if we zoom out, you've got that entire distance there, from there to there, on an uninterrupted scenic mountain road. It's phenomenal that the American government or whoever commissioned it decided to commission it and spent the money building it, because it's a fantastic piece of engineering. And then this is a motorcycling nirvana, really. Deal's Gap, which is Tail of the Dragon, that famous road, but then there's so many others in this region. You can pick up some really good motorcycle friendly maps which have got all the routes marked on it. There's also some very good campsites that are focused solely on motorcycling, all in this area. We stayed at Iron Horse Lodge, which it's like nothing else you've ever seen. A really nice campsite with log cabins as well. Then this really huge, nice, well furnished main log house cabin thing where you got a restaurant and a bar and presentation rooms and all sorts of things. So it's where Horizons Unlimited have some events, and plenty of other motorbike clubs have events. And it's just, if we had facilities like that in the UK, I think they'd be packed out. So all this area is worth exploring. And what we did, we stayed in Iron Horse, and then we rode up, did Deal's Gap, and then we dropped back down. So you ride up. Tail of the Dragon is this road here. Works its way up, 112 corners or whatever it is in 11 miles. We turned around, came back down, and then dropped down onto this road. And then this road we did, it is called the Sharahola Skyway, which is another hugely scenic roller coaster of a road, which again takes you through and over the mountains. Huckleberry Knob, Joyce Milner Memorial Forest. So it's all mountainous forest region, and you just ride it west. Great motorcycling terrain, until you come out at Tellico Plains, which is a quite nice, pretty little town with a Harley rental place just on the outskirts. So that's very busy with Harley Davidson riders. And then from there, drop down to join the Ocoee River and aim towards Chattanooga. This is we just happened to pass through here, but we didn't actually stop, which in hindsight we should have done. Reliance here has got it's got a barbecue house there because there's some great barbecue food through here, and then it's got a place where you can rent tubes to go down the river on. So you just rent a tube, and then I think they take you upriver, and then you just float down, and just a great place to relax and unwind. And unfortunately, I was caught out. I didn't think we had time to stop, and did stop, and then it's one of those things you regret, wish that you had. But what we did, we headed down onto the Lake Ocoee, and then came down here. We stopped at a campsite just there, Ocoee outdoor whitewater rafting. There's lots of campsites along here. People say, how do you find campsites? Well, campsites find you generally in the scenic areas of America. It's very difficult not to find a campsite because they're everywhere. I think there's wiki camps in America, and there's lots of apps now that help you find them. National parks all have them. And the state forests have got free campsites or free camping within them. There's no running water or anything, and the national park campsites equally only have a tap and a toilet. They don't have a shower or anything like that. But the national park campsites are very cheap, $15 or so. The private campsites can be expensive, up to sort of $40 a night for a tent pitch, which seems quite expensive. But it is what it is. A motel, by comparison, $50 or $60. And the reason you could travel America in the way that we were, even with a sizable group, is because there are so many motels everywhere, and they've all got vacancies. Very seldom would you find one fully booked, unless you were going somewhere that had a major event on. Then you might get caught out, but you just simply ride to the next town or wherever, and there would be another 4 motels with plenty of room. Certainly if you're arriving at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you do find that they get busier sort of towards 10 o'clock at night. But if you're stopping and getting off the road at 5 or 6, there's plenty of places. So we camped there, and it's probably one of the favourite nights of that trip, actually. A few had pushed on. They wanted to make further progress, but we stopped at about 3. We put up tent there, and then we rode back, and we had a swim in the lake, which was fantastic. And then we had a ride back in wet clothes on a hot evening, and we stopped at a pizza shack just around here somewhere. And it was just a lovely, relaxed way to spend group travel through America. And I think that's what it defines America for me. It's just a fabulous place for riding a motorcycle and seeing and meeting incredible people. I don't really rely on the stereotypes of America or Americans. I think it does them a disservice, because wherever I've been in America, people have been incredibly kind, interested, and in knowledgeable. I think sometimes unfairly people write them off as being ignorant and naive and thick, whereas it's not been the case when I've been, and the people I've met. You generally meet very curious, interesting people, and I've never felt any threat. Maybe Chicago, going in through the suburbs, I felt a little bit of intimidation, but the rest of the way across America on the many times, I've never felt a threat. So yeah, certainly don't be put off by the stereotype, because like everywhere, there are idiots, but there are a vast majority more of normal people who are just there to be talked to. Really, I love the discussions you'd have in America. You'd often get talking at length to anyone who'd come across your path, whether it be in a gas station or you'd be sat in a restaurant and somebody come talking, or the waitress. So for me, that's what defines America, is the conversations you have as you travel, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much. And then from there, we kind of whistle-stopped it a little bit across west. We went out towards, let me just get my bearings, sorry, out to Chattanooga, and then we dropped south again on sort of flowing roads, nothing overly spectacular, but this was a bit of a transit stage. And this is how I would define traveling for me. You're going to have a transit stage, and then you're going to have a scenic stage. Scenic stage is where you're going to meander, you're going to find the best roads, you're going to take your time, maybe reduce your mileage. Transit stages, you're going to just pick the roads at a compromise of getting there, but not too busy or crazy, or interstate or motorway. We did a bit of interstate around Chattanooga, home of the Chattanooga Choo Choo, if that means anything to anyone. And then we headed to Huntsville. We went to the NASA museum and saw the spaceship there, which was pretty cool and a complete surprise. We just dropped down the hill and there was this spaceship parked up there, and we just stopped and had a look. And then over the bridge to Decatur, I think I'm pronouncing it right. And then from here, we're kind of heading into the Deep South, or the top side of the Deep South. You can see Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama. And I'd love to go a little bit further south, to be honest, because I actually really adore this region of America. I think it's where some really interesting people live. It has a very different story to the rest of America. The buildings tell different stories. The towns have got a different feel to them. I feel really sorry for some of these towns. They've really been hollowed out by the strip malls that are built on the outskirts, and then the town centre, as it would have been thriving in the 50s, 60s, 70s, are almost ghost towns and deserted. And there's a lot of efforts to sort of re-gentrify or re-commerce them, but sometimes it seems to work and sometimes it doesn't. But I really enjoy seeing this different side of America, and I love the food down there. We just stop at whatever local diner or country house restaurant we could find, and it was like the old mom and pa type eating places. There's obviously a hell of a lot of McDonald's and Burger King and all the rest, but yeah, go looking for the little shacks and the little single story buildings in the corner of a parking lot where they do home cooked food, mash and fried chicken and green beans and things like that. Because you'll go in there and you'll feel like an alien, but yeah, you're as welcome as anything, and you just have a good chat and a good time. So yeah, I really enjoyed this section, and it's a shame again we haven't got more time to explore it when we're going coast to coast. And then just to see where we are, and I'm going to stop it soon. But Shackle Inn, which is something I found, I think my cousin actually pointed it out, but it's probably my favourite accommodation spot in all of America. It is just outside the town or the village. Well, no, it's not a village, it's a town, say, of Clarksdale, which was very famous for blues music. I think there was a crossroads there, which a lot of the blues artists would sing about. And again, it's one of these towns that have been hollowed out by the strip malls, and it's got a bit of a down on its look feel, but then there's art projects and things going on in the centre that to try and bring life to it. Just on the outskirts south of it, alongside the railway line, there's it must have been an old grain silo. Somebody took over that and then filled the land around it with shacks, old-fashioned wooden-built shacks that they'd bought from various parts of America, brought to this single place, and then littered along the landscape. And they're just really friendly, quaint little shacks that are actually really comfortable and just quirky and different. And there's a live bar, there's music, there's a bar with live music on site, and just got such a relaxed vibe. It's somewhere where you could think I could spend all winter there. Lay low, take out a cabin for 5 months in winter, get to know some locals, and just sort of relax in this laid-back area of America. And so Shackle Inn, by far my favourite. It's about £80 a night for a shack, which sounds a lot for a shack, but they're not. Well, hopefully you're seeing pictures at the minute which show it for what it is. And yeah, favourite place. We stopped there two nights to recoup. Spent some time in Clarksdale stocking up on Walmart things and picking up the bits and pieces we didn't need. People say, what do you take on a trip like this? Well, you take what you think you need, and as you go along, you buy what you realise you've forgotten. And that's easy in America, where there's lots of Walmarts and other Target and places like that. And then we dropped south. We spent a little bit time around here trying to get Dave's KLR 650 fixed. Somebody posted on the Facebook forums, and somebody just outside Cleveland, I think, had got a donor bike that he was happy just to leave outside and for Dave to turn up while he was out at work. And he said, take any part off that you think might help it work better. And we took the ECU and the alternator and the regulator rectifier off and swapped them over, trying to improve the hot starting of Dave's KLR 650. And it kind of helped a bit, but not a great deal. But yeah, it was good. I mean, just the hospitality and the helpfulness of the locals there was second to none. Yeah, unbelievable. And then we crossed across, and then you kind of heading for Texas. I'm trying to think where we are. Yeah, Arkansas here. Oh, it's a shame, Arkansas. As you stop at the tourist information centres, which there's one just after the crossing over the Mississippi, just there. And they've got maps that show some incredible riding in Arkansas, and they've got a lot of motorcycle friendly information pointing out the best trail rides and the best mountain roads and things like that. There's the Pig Trail up in the north, which is near the Ozarks, which if you've seen the TV show on Amazon, you'll know that sort of landscape, that lake and mountain type landscape. So there's lots of good riding in Arkansas, and we sadly have to kind of go through the guts of it. Still enjoy the riding, but aware that you're missing out some really good stuff. And then for me, this is a route I discovered when we were coming west to east on the GS 1200, and it avoids the major cities again. Dallas, it stays off the interstate, but this road, such as 82 here, it's a two-lane road all the way. It's not busy. There's not a lot happening on it. There's not a huge amount to see, but it gets you across Texas quite quick. And on a 4-week coast to coast, unfortunately, yeah, that's where you have to make up your time and do your 300-mile days and stay in motels. Again, every little town along here, there's motels. You don't have to worry about where you're going to stay. There will be a motel. Always owned by Indians. I think Indians own something like 90% of all motels in America, just because I guess they're the only, maybe because they use their family-run businesses, they're the only ones who can turn a profit when they're not always busy, you know, when the place is not always busy. If you had to employ staff and things, I think it might be a struggle. But if an Indian family that has got, maybe I'm stereotyping, but an Indian family that have got members of the family working at the motel, that seems to be the way it works out there. So yeah, I mean, there's a good standard of motels and a good range of prices, but for $50-$60 or so, $50 or $60, you'll get a perfectly good room. And it allows you to get some sleep for the night. Not so many campsites around here, not as easy to find camping through the center belt of America. There are places, and with wiki camps and things like that, you would find some private sites, but certainly not the same amount as you would find in the more tourist friendly or tourist popular areas. So motels really through here, and because it's hot in the daytime, it's a good to get in some air conditioning. But yeah, the 82 goes to, I mean, Paris. Put some video up of that. They've got Paris has got an Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat on it, and it's a nice little town. I could really enjoy Paris. I've been through it twice, and I don't know, I just like its charm. Again, another hollowed out town centre with a busy strip mall on the outside, but doing its best again to survive. And then all through here, really, on the 380, this is all just flat, empty. There's a few nodding donkeys getting the oil out the ground. And then there's a lot of ghost towns or old abandoned buildings and villages through here. And I find it really fascinating, this side of America. It's almost like the forgotten America through here. You know, it's a kind of place you wouldn't go there by choice, but actually because you're there, it's actually really interesting. I just find it fascinating that these endlessly long straight roads with abandoned villages and sort of down on the luck towns, and it's always interesting to meet the people who live in these places and see what they've got to say and what they think and how they feel about the way of the world and which way it's going. And yeah, like any country, there's a lots of upheaval and change in America, and people are trying to make sense of it just as we are here, I suppose. And yeah, the 380 goes west all the way out, Lubbock, south of that, and eventually Roswell, and that's where today's journey will end. UFO sightings. It's kind of a big town actually. It's surprisingly big and modern compared to the expectation. There is a really naff UFO museum which is always worth going in. And actually, this wasn't the particular route we took because we had a few riders, or quite a few of the group, who wanted to see Amarillo, which is where Cadillac Ranch is. And that is on Route 66. So Route 66 comes down through Oklahoma City, carries on the 40, passes through Amarillo. So Cadillac Ranch is really popular stopover. So I think we turned off there and we went up there on this sort of dual carriageway on the 287 to Amarillo and stayed in Amarillo a night, which was fine, decent town. And then a few of us still wanted to see Roswell, so we speared back down here and ended up in Roswell for the night while others went on, and I think we met them in Santa Fe. Cadillac Ranch was a little bit disappointing for me. It was just a dirty, unloved tourist attraction, which I don't know, was not worth the journey, but I guess it's one of those places you've got to tick off and say you've seen. So that's it. That's the first half of America. If you're planning on a trip across America, this is a nice route that I followed, but equally, You know, if you've got the time, you might want to do Florida. You might want to do New Orleans, San Antonio. When I did the bus route across, I enjoyed San Antonio around here. I really did. I thought it was a nice city. But again, you've got, you know, how much time have you got to spare to come down here to go back up just to say you've seen a city? And that's always a difficulty. New Orleans, again, I enjoyed being in New Orleans, but whether I'd ride all the way down to get to New Orleans just to say I've been there and then leave again, on the time scale we had, not so much. If you've got 8 weeks, then why not? Because equally, there's supposed to be some really nice riding down here in the border regions south of San Antonio along here. So yeah, so you can't win them all, you can't do everything. All right, I'll get editing some video and catch you later. Cheers.